In 1579, a man arrived in Japan that no one in the country had ever seen anything like. The crowds followed him through the streets of Kyoto. Some fainted. Children ran. A mob pressed so hard trying to get close that people were crushed against the walls. The most powerful warlord in Japan heard about him immediately. His name, as the Japanese recorded it, was Yasuke. Where exactly he was born is still debated. Mozambique, Ethiopia, South Sudan, somewhere in sub-Saharan Africa, almost certainly in the late 1550s. He had crossed the world in the service of an Italian Jesuit missionary named Alessandro Valignano, arriving in Japan as an attendant, interpreter, and bodyguard. He was tall, physically striking by any standard of any culture, and he was the first African man most Japanese people had ever laid eyes on. When word reached Oda Nobunaga, the warlord in the process of forcibly unifying Japan after a century of civil war, a man who collected rare things and broke every convention he encountered, he demanded to meet Yasuke immediately. The meeting became infamous. Nobunaga was convinced Yasuke's skin color was ink. He ordered him to strip to the waist and scrub his skin in front of the court, certain the black would come off. It didn't. Nobunaga stared. Then he was fascinated. What happened next is almost without parallel in Japanese history. Nobunaga took Yasuke into his personal service. Not as a servant, he gave him a stipend, his own residence, a ceremonial katana, the sword that in Japanese culture marked a man as a samurai. He ate at Nobunaga's table, traveled in his inner circle. The two men, through interpreters, apparently talked for hours. Japanese chronicles describe Nobunaga's delight in his company. In a feudal society built on rigid hereditary class, a foreign-born African man had been elevated to one of the most exclusive ranks in the country. But Nobunaga had enemies. On June 21, 1582, one of his own generals, Akechi Mitsuhide, surrounded the temple where Nobunaga was staying in Kyoto with a force of 13,000 men. The Honnoji incident, one of the most notorious betrayals in Japanese history. Nobunaga was outnumbered. He was dead within hours. Yasuke was fighting elsewhere that day, guarding Nobunaga's son and heir, Oda Nobunaga, at Nijō Castle. When Nobutada's position also became hopeless, Yasuke fought until the castle fell. He was captured by Mitsuhide's forces. Mitsuhide looked at him and made a decision that, in a strange way, tells you everything. He refused to execute him. He said Yasuke was not Japanese, not a true samurai in his eyes. Just a beast, not worth a warrior's death. He sent him back to the Jesuit mission house. And there, the historical record ends. We don't know what happened to Yasuke after that day, whether he stayed in Japan, sailed back to the continent, lived quietly, or died young. No grave, no final letter, no confirmed date of death. He simply disappears. But for 3 years, in feudal Japan, in the most class-rigid society on earth, a man from sub-Saharan Africa held a samurai's sword, sat at a warlord's table, and was considered, by the man who was unifying an entire nation, to be worth knowing. That is not a footnote. That is a life. If you want more stories that the textbooks left out, like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell. And drop a comment. Whom, hidden story or not, shall we cover next? One life, one story, history.